Author of Hidden History, Crimes and Cover-Ups in American Politics, 1776 to 1963, and Survival of the Richest, Donlad Jeffries separates the real from the unreal. Fact from fiction. Reverse engineering our manufactured reality. And now, from just outside the swamp-infested Washington, D.C., this is I Protest with Donlad Jeffries.
And welcome to I Protest. This is Donlad Jeffries here with you, coming to you from just outside the swamp-infested Washington, D.C., as the man says, every Friday at 5 p.m. Eastern, 5 to 7 p.m. Eastern here. Glad you could join us, and I hope to see a bunch of you out there. We have a returning guest. Now, you probably remember last year sometime, I think it's been, I don't know, maybe last summer or something, I had just a remarkable teenager on the show named Amelia, who just has been confronting the school boards and had some very successful big hit videos out there that I saw a couple of them on YouTube. I said, wow, this is incredible. Her mom is also very active in confronting these school boards on their being tyrants. I don't know what else you can call it. But we have her, unfortunately. Amelia is working today, already at 15. She's working hard, and then she's working towards probably becoming president in whatever year she'll be eligible, I guess 20 years from now or something. So she'll have my vote. I'm a president of her fan club, so let her know that. I'm very sad she's not here, but we will have a little video of her we're going to try to show in a little bit. And Leanne, her mother, is here, and she's done some great work herself. Thanks so much for coming back on the show, Leanne.
Well, thanks so much for having me again. The subject of education is so very important, so I'm glad you're continuing to cover that.
Well, there's so many things to cover, and I can't. I try to do as many on different subjects I can. Like I want to cover. There's so many things going on. There's so much corruption, so much injustice, so many bad things are happening that people are trying to fight and aren't being covered. I don't think. As well as they should be. And certainly the school board issue is one. And as I told you before we went on the air, I live pretty much in the epicenter of where the protests were, the center of the protests against the school boards a few years back. Loudoun County, where I used to work, Virginia, that was the place where the father's daughter was raped in the bathroom, the school bathroom, by somehow. Obviously it wasn't a transgender if he was able to rape her. And he had done it before. He was just transferred, and the father was attacked and beaten by the cops when he made kind of an angry speech, understandably, at the school board meeting. As I understand it, the stuff is still going on over there in Loudoun County. It doesn't look like much has been changed. And here in my Fairfax County, I just learned, and I'm trying to. I wanted to have her on with you, and there's no contact in for her. I think her name is Kate. I forget her name, but I have it down somewhere. Well, a young mother, and she gave a great speech before the Fairfax County School Board talking about she has a son that she's about ready to enter preschool. And she's saying, tell me why I should enter your schools instead of homeschooling, because they had just voted 16-0 to allow gender studies in elementary schools. So this is a fight, but again, I don't understand. The Fairfax County, I don't know how many people in Fairfax County are watching this, but it distresses me because if my kids were young today, I would be at these meetings and probably being tased and beaten myself. But so how is the battle going, and what has changed also since the election of Trump? Have you seen any differences at all?
Not so much in the school board where we've been speaking at Chippewa Valley School District in Michigan. However, the board itself has changed because they did have elections when they had the presidential election. Now, the change has been quite major. Since Amelia started speaking there and stirring up the pot and bringing a lot of attention to this particular school district, there's been a few school board members, I think, that couldn't take the heat, and two of them left before their term was up, and a third one decided that he wasn't going to run again. And a fourth member, Miss Aquino, had resigned her position, but through a very nefarious type of process, to fill the vacated school board seats of the two that had resigned. They had kind of a dog and pony show interview during a special meeting where they allowed candidates who were interested in the school board to come and interview. And I was at those meetings, and there were some very good candidates that had done the interview. And despite that, they decided to reinstall this Miss Aquino, who had been on the school board for 27 years. And a lot of people were quite upset about this. And she said that the reason why that she resigned in the first place was because she didn't want to run a campaign. I don't know if she just didn't want to spend the money or what. So she resigned when she discovered, I guess, that these two positions would be open, and decided that she was going to run for them. We suspect that there was some collusion behind the scenes in order to reinstall her back on the school board. So she's back on there. Now, with the election, there was one school board member by the name of Monica, who was very involved in the school board meetings and in the district, and she was duly elected. And she's conservative, and she's asking questions, and we're glad that she got on the school board. However, another person that was elected, his name is Mr. Kuntz, had never attended any of the Chippewa Valley School Board meetings in the past. I really doubt that he knew really anything that was going on in the district. I'm not sure if he just wanted an elected position or what, but he is now on the school board. Hopefully he does a good job, but unfortunately we think he's aligning with the left side members of the school board. The school board also, to fill the second vacated seat, in their interviews, they decided to choose a Black woman by the name of Miss Mahome. And when each school board member was asked why they chose her, they basically said that they wanted diversity on the board. Now, Miss Mahome had never attended any school board meetings either. So, we have two members on that board that really have not followed the story or really know what was going on with the school board, the policies, the drama, or anything that's going on in that district. So we're not really sure how effective this is going to be. There's, two conservatives, but it's still not enough to outweigh the left-wing members that are on there. Now, from what I understand, the school board has not changed their position on anything to follow President Trump's initiatives and
Yes.
executive orders regarding removing the DEI from the schools. So I'm not sure if it's going to take them losing their federal funding in order for them to comply or what. But people were still going to the school board meetings and asking why they're not complying. And I think it's because they really feel comfortable with the fact that they're not going to face any repercussions for not complying as far as the state level goes, because, we have Governor Whitmer, who is very far left, and our Attorney General, Dana Nessel, who's also very far left, who is not going to demand any accountability or demand that any of the school districts follow any of President Trump's policies.
No, that's for sure. You got two of the worst out there. That's for sure. And Whitmer.
Yeah, and the Secretary of State as well, Jocelyn Benson, is right up there with them, and she recently announced that she's going to run for governor in Michigan because Whitmer, her term is up. So next year, it's going to be kind of a battle here in Michigan regarding the governor, and hopefully the Republicans put up a good candidate, but we're not sure at this point who will be running.
Yeah, well, until I think we talked about this last time, and I say this about everything, but until I mean, the election of Trump, it's just, we'll see how much it ends up meaning. But if these things are ignored, which it looks like that, certainly Fairfax County's ignoring it. Fairfax County is right next door there,
Right.
and but so this we have. But I still say the answer is, and that's why I was so impressed looking at your courageous daughter Amelia for standing up in that hostile environment because she's not doing that. And any of the guy whose daughter was raped in Loudoun County, they're not standing up amid a group of supporters. It's not like me talking out to however many people are listening and knowing that almost all of them support what I'm saying. This would be like me going on I don't know, the New York Times podcast or something and knowing 99% of people probably hated what I was saying. That takes some guts. And we need to show that. I mean, I just am astonished that parents, but again, you see the crazy mothers that, that take their kids to drag strip shows and all this. There's a lot of craziness out there, but we have to still outnumber those people, I would think that. But as you said, they don't go to the school board meetings. They need to go and support Amelia and the people that are, because there's always somebody that's willing to speak up. But if there's only 2 or 3 people there, I noticed one of the videos I was looking at Amelia again. It looked like a woman was on her phone and just kind of shaking her head when Amelia was talking or something.
Yeah,
kind of
there's a kind of a little left wing group that attends the meetings, and they've kind of attacked her on social media. And the school board has really allowed it. In fact, one of the former school board members, his wife, attacked Amelia on social media. And when Amelia brought it up at the school board meeting, the school
Yes.
board president didn't like that, and he couldn't shut Amelia up. And that's when the school board walked out. And that's kind of when the whole controversy started. Somebody picked up that video and put it out there, and it started to get shared. And then people started coming to meetings to kind of hear her speak. And she kind of chose some creative ways of getting her point across, and people really seem to gravitate towards that, and like that they had this young girl that was really standing up for the Constitution and conservative principles and making valid fact-based arguments and bringing the facts to the table in her speeches, and not just making everything about emotions and feelings. She was actually doing her homework and her research and bringing a lot of statistics and facts.
Well, and to those of you who are unfamiliar with, we're going to play hopefully my crazy internet, which I think it's part of the conspiracy against me. I pay so damn much for this internet, and they're always trying to sabotage it. But we're going to try sharing this. Hold on a second. I'm going to let me go to share screen here. So we're going to play one video by her. Okay. And this gives you a flavor for what fascinated me when I first saw her. I don't know, this wasn't the first one I saw, but she's got a lot of great videos. So you can give out your address later for the YouTube channel. But this is, see how you guys like this.
Line with the CE shop is the best way to renew.
First,
Complete your
Commercial.
There you go.
Oh, there we go.
Yeah.
Mr. Pearl, at the last meeting, you gavelled down a speaker who was criticizing a board member. You claimed we have, quote, limited First Amendment rights by law, unquote. That's not exactly correct, so let me educate you. According to the National School Board Association, these meetings are a designated public forum, meaning the public has the right to speak regarding matters within the jurisdiction of the school board. Additionally, the First Amendment protects the right to criticize public officials and their adult family members without fear of retribution or punishment. You cannot make any rules stating otherwise. If any of you can't accept public scrutiny, then resign. Now, on to you, Mr. Roberts. At the September meeting last year, you said in part, quote, "The most important thing we want out of this community comment is that anyone who speaks to the board feels like they're listened to. It's very important, regardless if we disagree on things. I hope that person is allowed to just speak and say what they want," unquote. So, exactly what did you mean by that, Mr. Roberts, considering this board has repeatedly gavelled people down and even walked out while they addressed this board? You can't listen to a speaker if you're not in the room, and people can't speak freely if you're making unconstitutional rules. Mr. Roberts also made this comment at the last meeting, quote, "We take great pride in being one of the best public school districts in Michigan," unquote. I'm not sure what you meant by that, considering one of the most reliable school data collection sites states Chippewa Valley School District ranks 210 out of 606 Michigan districts. It's very easy to look up information about schools. You should try it sometime. I realize you're very busy making videos of yourself to play at these board meetings and also posting on social media. Speaking of social media, let me inform you. Last month, the Supreme Court ruled public officials who post on their personal social media accounts about work-related topics are acting on behalf of the government. Therefore, they can be held liable for violating the First Amendment if they block their critics. So, Mr. Robert, you might want to make sure you haven't blocked anyone, especially people who attend these meetings. Maybe evaluate your ex, aka Twitter account. I'm quite perplexed as to why this board has to be repeatedly schooled by a kid. I gave you each a copy of the Constitution last year. You really should read it because you all took an oath to support it. In closing, I want to remind this board, you are not kings and we are not your servants.
Right.
You work for the people, not your political parties.
That's right.
Thank you.
Where's the standing ovation?
Showings.
Come on.
They can be fun when you can help a great body.
Wow, that was fantastic. I don't know what to say. You know, I'm in awe.
I'm
when I
not
see
sure
people.
how it came across on your end, but it was very choppy on my end. So I'm not sure
was it?
if the viewers were seeing the same thing that I was.
Okay, because
It was
fine here.
mostly not really understandable.
Let me know in the chat if I was fine for me. Anybody in the chat chime in? Vince Agnelli says I love it. Ellen says I'm glad I found. Let me know in the chat, people, if that was choppy or it didn't work right. If it was, it's probably my stupid internet. Deborah Wheeler says, the lovely Deborah Wheeler says it was clear. Came through great for me, Ellen says. So it must have been on your end, I guess. So they saw it okay. So, and if you saw it, you should be fans of it because this young lady is, especially she was 14. How old was she when started? 14 or even younger than that when she started doing this?
She actually started speaking at school board meetings when she was about 11. And
Oh, I don't know what happened to Leanne. I'm losing Leanne here. And I've lost Leanne. What happened to her? Well, hopefully she'll be back. Wow. I guess it was her connection because you guys all heard it clear. Let's hope she gets back. She's a wonderful woman and she has just a remarkable daughter. And I hope to have her back, Amelia, back on the show herself. But she was working today and she's a very, conscientious worker. And I guess she didn't get off or whatever. Yeah, Vince says it looks like her in it. So hopefully she comes back. Well, hopefully we get Leanne back. But if not, we'll be talking to the chat like we had to do last week with when I thought Sally Kirkland was going to be on the show. That still hasn't been cleared up. I don't know if Sally's ever going to be on the show because she's in her 80s and that was a shame. Oh, cool. Vince says he wants to. I will do that, Vince. I'm sure she'd love to get it. It's right up your alley because she's trying to affect change at the lowest level. And again, I don't want to be too cynical about it. But when I look, I don't know if you heard that, Vince, at Fairfax County. I saw this. Tried to get her. I can't find any contact info. I think her name was Katie Whiteworth or something. But just a remarkable young mother holding up her, 3-year-old, I guess it was, and she was saying, he's about ready. Okay, there she is. Hold on a second.
I'm
They got you. What happened? They zapped you.
I don't know. For some reason my computer just stopped working, and so I try to pick it up from my phone. So
Well, you're on iProtests. All kinds of strange things happen when people talk to me. It's just get used to it. I mean, it happens, but that's great. But everybody heard it fine, and they're all impressed with Leanne. With Amelia, and impressed with you too. But I want to email me later, Leanne. Email me your address because Vince Agnelli, who's a great guy, a writer himself, he wrote a very wonderful little book called The Public Wheel, where he talks about starting a protest at the. How come I have you again, Leanne? You're on here in the studio twice. Oh, wait a minute.
From my phone and reconnect.
Okay. Let me get rid of you. I'm gonna get rid of the other one just in case it messes up. Okay. I wondered what happened. I said.
Somebody doesn't
Okay.
like us talking about this subject, I guess.
No, well, we talk. There's not one show that I'm not talking about something controversial, so it's almost impossible for me to do that. So, but yeah, this is something they don't want to hear us. But email me your home address after this because Vince Agnelli, who has written a great little book called The Public Wheel, which talks about affecting change at the local level. He gives it out for free, so he wants to send you you and Amelia a copy. So if you just give me your
Okay.
address and email and send it out, then. But Vince very impressed with you. So and obviously with Amelia, because I mean the fact she started this one. Do you have any when she was that little? Because I don't know if I saw any before she was
Um,
14. Maybe.
I do have some on my YouTube channel, but
Okay, I have to
if
check
you
it.
scroll through the videos, you have to scroll through a lot of the videos to get towards the bottom where the
Okay,
older videos are. Um,
okay.
and she
Because I
was
mean
just
she.
starting out then, so she was kind of a little bit of a spitfire and hadn't really navigated so much about public speaking, but the more she did it, the more confident she became
She's very
and
confident.
the better she did.
Oh,
And so, she was out there bringing attention to the subjects, and it's quite unusual for kids to be standing up at the school board meetings. Um,
yeah.
but
Especially like
seeing that
that, and it,
people really like it, and a lot of her videos went viral on every platform, and a lot of high profile social media influencers and YouTubers picked up on the videos and did commentaries on them, and then those went viral. So her videos are continuing to surface and um, be shared online. And based on, I look through the comments on a lot of them that are on social media, and I want to say they're 99% positive. People really like what she's saying, they agree with what she's saying. And it's a little bit funny because one of her most popular speeches was when she is handing the Constitution
yeah,
out
that's a
to
great
the
one.
school board members. And a lot of people, even on the left, like that one. And some of the comments were, you know, maybe Trump should see this because this girl could really debate him. And it seemed like there was actually some anti-Trumpers that actually liked what she was saying. And I'm like, if they saw some of her other videos, they would realize that she's actually not on their side, that she's actually for conservative values and principles and fact-based education, and not for kids being indoctrinated with these different ideologies. And going back to the basic reading and writing that should be taught in schools, and the math,
Absolutely.
that's really where these public schools need to go, because they're placing a lot of emphasis on these DEI and critical race theory and history revision, 1619 project, things like that. And it's detracting away from the proficiency in the reading and the math. And that's where kids are really lacking. And those skills are just crucial for them to be successful in their adult lives. And they're really kind of being deprived of that basic fact-based education that is so necessary. So hopefully the Trump administration will really buckle down on these schools and follow through with the end of the funding. And perhaps that would be enough to make them comply and return to how education used to be before the Department of Education was actually created, because that department doesn't actually educate students or even pay teachers' salaries. It's really kind of a bloated bureaucracy that's really kind of taken over things and actually caused the decline of proficiency scores in public schools.
No, again, I trying to find out, it's very frustrating covering Trump. I'm a Trump agnostic. I end up coming on his side way more than not, because the other side is so insane. But it's trying to figure out what's actually happening with Trump, because he's especially now, he's such a chaotic figure. It's like it's just constant, it's one thing after another, and you're not really sure what's. And I'm not sure. I've heard that he's going to abolish the Department of Education. He put through, but I don't know. I haven't figured out what, if anything, has really happened yet. I mean, can he do that? I don't know that he can just by executive order say the Department of Education exists anymore. But certainly their track record is horrible, because since they were instituted, it just happens to coincide with the reading literacy rate and all that has just gone down and tanked, as your daughter points out so astutely in these meetings. But I think we talked about it the last time. But so Amelia has always been homeschooled, or was she ever in the public schools at all?
No, she actually was in public schools through halfway through 8th grade is when we pulled her.
Okay, that's sure.
She started speaking at the school board meetings when kind of during COVID. It was about 2021 or so. And she initially went there to protest about the mask mandates and how it was really detracting from kids being able to learn, and making, she was having problems wearing a mask. She couldn't breathe. She couldn't focus. And she had made the school board members at the time were all wearing masks, and you didn't have to wear one if you were attending the meeting. But when the kids were in school, they were required to wear masks. So the school board members are all sitting up there wearing their masks. And Amelia noted during the school board meeting before public comment time how many of the school board members were touching their masks, fiddling with their masks, pulling their masks down to drink water, pulling it down to talk to each other. So she noted that. And then when it was her time to speak, she went down the line and called each school board member out by name and said, Mr. So-and-so, you pulled your mask down 5 times and, fiddled with it 3 times. And the audience just absolutely loved that. She got a standing ovation at the end, because people could realize that, the whole mask thing just made no sense at all. And it was
Insanity.
even, proven that the masks were really not effective at all. In fact, they were actually spreading more germs than they were preventing. So that's kind of where she really got her start. And there was some other things that happened at school, like she was being bullied a lot, and she had gone to the counselor about that. And the counselor had told her, well, it's just boys being rude and annoying, and really telling her she wasn't being bullied when actually she was. They were tripping her. They were tripping her on the bus, calling her very vile names, and pushing her into lockers at school. And the counselor didn't really do anything about it. And there was another instance where she was in her English class and they were reading the diary of Anne Frank. And the English teacher started to try to compare Trump to Hitler in this English class. And Amelia thought, that's really wrong. Why are you doing that? We're talking about the diary of Anne Frank, and that has nothing to do with Trump. And so she spoke about that at the school board meeting. And apparently, the school board meeting went and talked to the teacher, and the school board decided, well, there was nothing wrong with what the teacher said. And Amelia just, that was kind of the straw that broke the camel's back. She's like, if you're going to allow this kind of thing to be happening in English class, I don't want to be a part of this. So we decided to pull her out, and we found a very excellent homeschool campus that she's attending now, which is wonderful, a very excellent learning environment, very small classes, conservative base. So I don't have to worry about her being fed this DEI and left wing ideologies and so forth. So she's doing very remarkably well. And it wasn't until she actually started attending that homeschool campus that she really gained a lot of confidence. The anxiety was really gone, and she was able to excel and come out of her shell. And that is really evident when she goes toe to toe with these school board members. And she just did not let them bully her, belittle her, silence her. She stood against it all. And
Yeah.
I was just like blown away watching her up there, because I'm like, well, we taught her what her rights were. And she's learned a lot from being in politics since she was a young age. We would go to a lot of political events and watch a lot of the candidates speak. And I think she really picked up on a lot of that stuff. And you hear her saying, I reclaim my time when they try to cut her off. And I'm like, hey,
Yeah.
that's straight from one of those congressional hearings. Good for
Yeah.
you,
Yeah. Yeah.
And
Yeah.
it, she's really been great. And she would try to show other kids and hopefully inspire them that their voice really matters, and that there's not, that if they do have an issue, that they should be going to the school board about it. And the school board should really be addressing these issues, especially when it's a student bringing them forth, because the whole purpose of the school board is to ensure that the kids get a proper education that prepares them for a successful future. And if they aren't listening really to the kids that are sitting in the classrooms on a daily basis, then they're really not fulfilling their obligations to the fullest as a school board member.
No, absolutely. And again, I'll say this probably 100 times. I can't imagine how proud you must be of her. But just she is a natural at this, and again, it does take courage. And I must have. Like, I think you mentioned her being bullied before. Did I send you my book Bullyocracy? Did I send that to you?
No, no,
Okay, well, when I get your address, I'm gonna, because I think that Amelia would love it. I mean, I wrote a book about
probably. Yeah.
bullying, and I talked to too many parents whose kids had killed themselves from bullying. Just horrible stories like that. And in every case, and that's why you're talking to somebody that I couldn't have a lower opinion of the schools if I had to. Uh, it's in every, and I mean every case, the schools took the sides of the bullies over. No, even if they had anti-bullying, no bullying tolerated, didn't matter. They always took the sides, and it's all documented in there. People can see it. It hasn't sold, it's probably one of my least selling books, but I'm proud of it. It also came out at a unfortunate time right as COVID hit, so I don't know, it just kind of got lost in the shuffle. But I think she would like it. So when I get your address for Vince, so you'll be getting a couple books. But I think she'll like it a lot. She'll be able to relate to that, and she's obviously smart enough to be able to read at that level, because she seems like that she's more educated already than the vast majority of adults are. So. And I think you talked the last time. You have older children as well, right? Don't you have children that are pretty much older than her?
Yeah,
So
yeah.
I thought, okay,
But she's been almost like an only child at
yeah,
home, and so she's got a lot of attention,
yeah.
and so and she's been able to really get out there and make a difference.
And everybody in the family supporting her? Are they all? There's no? I hope there's nobody in the family that is opposed to what she's doing. Are they all supportive?
Well, my immediate family does, my
Yeah,
parents but we have extended family members that are left wing,
sure.
and they they pretty much block me off of Facebook. They don't want to see that
Yeah,
kind of stuff.
yeah,
They
yeah,
don't live in Michigan. They live in different states, so we don't see them. I only interact with them on Facebook, really.
yeah.
And I'm like, that's kind of a shame because, even if things were reversed and it was their kids that were going out there and being active in anything, school board or politics or whatever, I'd actually be interested to see that, because I'm like, hey, this is a member of my family, and look what they're
Mhm.
doing. Even if I would disagree with their point of view, I think it's really admirable that a young person can get out there and do that and be confident about it and knowledgeable about what they're speaking about.
Well,
And it's kind of a shame that people wouldn't support that, or that
it
they
is.
would make fun of her for doing it, or say that, oh, it's her parents are grooming her.
Yeah.
And I'm like, actually, no, we didn't groom her at all, because w- my husband and I were never involved in politics. I knew who the vice president and the president were. Pretty much that was about the extent of my political knowledge before we became involved. I'm embarrassed to say I didn't go to school board meetings or anything. I was one of those uninvolved parents.
What triggered your interest in politics? What triggered you and your
Well, it
husband
was
to
actually Amelia, and she was about
okay.
6, 7 years old, and we would watch the news. And at that time, they were showing Trump rallies on the news, or segments of them, or speaking a lot about it, because that was when he was running for the first time. And she was just like enthralled with that. And she said, Mom, if he ever comes to Michigan, would you take me to his rally? And I
Wow.
thought, I don't really know anything about politics. I'm not really comfortable in this element. And she just kept on about it. And finally, they announced that he was going to come to Michigan, and it wasn't too far from me. So I'm like, okay, well, if you want to go, we'll go. And so I took her, and she was, real little at the time, 6 or 7. So she was able to scoot right up front along the barricade. And at that time, Trump would come down after his speech and go along, the rope line, and sign things and shake hands and take pictures with people. And when he came to Amelia, he signed her poster, and he spoke with her, and said that she was a pretty girl, and he's like, oh, and is that your mom? And she says yes. He's like, oh, your mom is really beautiful. And I'm like, yeah, right. But
Oh, that's Trump's style.
yeah. So, I mean, that just kind of triggered something in her, because she was so excited after that. And I brought her back to school after the rally, and she had her poster with her, and she was showing her teacher the poster that Trump had signed. And she was just so proud. And I'm like, wow, something like really triggered this. I'm like, this is something that maybe I should encourage. So I started doing some research and found some local groups. And we started attending meetings and found out from people that were politically knowledgeable how to get more involved. And we started, going to campaign events and just different meetings and so forth, seminars, classes, all kinds of different things. I took her to everything I went to. She came with me, and she seemed to like really enjoy it. She didn't always understand what they were talking about, but I think she kind of listened. And of course, with her being like the only child and at these events and also being quite young, she got a lot of attention. And, I think she liked that. And I did get a little bit of flack because we were just going to kind of Republican events. And so I'm like, you know what? I'm going to take her to some of these Democrat events so that she can see what the other side is talking about and see if, how, and compare in her own mind and make her own decisions about the differences and see, maybe, she would be more attracted to that. And so I took her to a Hillary rally. And it was kind of the same thing with her being little. She scooted right up the front and got a picture with Hillary and so forth. But, and the same thing, we went to a Biden rally. I took her to a couple Whitmer things. But it's very different from the Trump rallies. Of course, their base is very excited and energized and everything, but it's just quite different. And, there at Trump rallies, there is always a member of the clergy that comes on prior to Trump coming on stage, where they say a prayer. They have someone say the Pledge of Allegiance, and they have someone sing the national anthem. And that's at every single Trump rally. It's very patriotic. There's flags everywhere. People, wear red, white, and blue. We didn't notice that at the Democrat rallies. It really was focused on anti-Republican, bashing Republicans, not really too much of a platform of what they stood for. And I think she really picked up on that. And she also, I think she just didn't like trying to pretend that she was a Democrat. She was good at acting, but it was really difficult to be among the people and be so opposed in their viewpoints and yet try to keep quiet and pretend to be one of them. I mean, it was kind of fun because, it was like trying to be like spies and going undercover and so forth. And I think she kind of liked that. But, the Trump rallies were just so much fun. And she, being as smart as she was in her mind, it just made more sense with the conservative principles and following the Constitution and following laws and abiding by laws. And she's picked up that, that really wasn't what the Democrats were supporting, the anti-police, defund the police rhetoric and pushing these different things in schools. And she's like, I just don't believe in that. I don't want to be a part of it. And that's why she gravitated towards the Republican or the conservative side of the political spectrum.
Yeah, no, well, it sounds like, I wondered if there's anybody connected to Trump that you could try to send some of these videos to. I would think somebody maybe in the White House would be interested in that. I guess she's too young.
I mean, she's kind of on his radar because, she did speak on stage at one of his rallies. I don't know if you realize that.
Well, that's right. How long ago was that's right? Well, how long ago was that?
She was 13. There? She was 13. So that is on my YouTube channel, that speech. It was on October 1st of 2022. She spoke on stage. And ironically, the event where she spoke at was held at the same venue where she attended her very first Trump rally. So I thought that was kind of cool. But yeah, we had gone to so many Republican events and met quite a few people that were close to Trump, and one of them was one of his cabinet members by the name of General Kellogg, and he was at an event we went to, and we had spoken to him, and he spoke with Amelia, and he was just so impressed with her. And she had mentioned something about, like, one of her goals was to speak on stage at a Trump rally. She wanted to say the Pledge of Allegiance because that was so important to her. And he actually made that happen. He took a picture with her and sent it to Trump, and I guess talked to him. And they decided that she was going to be one that said the Pledge of Allegiance on stage at that rally. But not only did she say the pledge, but she wrote her own speech that she said on stage that really everybody really liked. She got a lot of standing ovations and USA chants. And it was really kind of remarkable to see this, young girl looking so little up there. She had to stand up on a little stool to be seen over the podium when she spoke. But yeah, it was very important to her because one of the things that she accomplished in the school district that she attended was getting a American flag in every classroom, and the Pledge of Allegiance said every day, and they weren't doing that.
Wow.
And so, she made that change, and she was very proud of that. And that's one of the things that she mentioned in her speech on stage at that rally. But yeah, and we were involved in this latest campaign with President Trump. We were on his Trump Force 47 team, where Amelia and I would canvass homes to see who people would vote for, and they would keep tabs on that and try to encourage people to get out to vote and hopefully vote for Trump. I mean, we came across people that were Kamala voters, but we weren't really there to try to pick a fight with them or anything, just kind of collect data. And so we got involved with that, and just so many different things that we've been involved with politically. Another thing that she was able to do that was quite interesting is going to all these different events. She wrote a letter, and one of the events we went to was Kellyanne Conway was one of the featured speakers. Mm-hmm. And so Amelia wrote Kellyanne a letter about how much she wanted to go and visit the White House West Wing and see the Oval Office. Well, that rally or speaking engagement ended, and a member of Kellyanne's staff came out and said, "Well, your daughter's the one that wrote the letter to Kellyanne." And I said, "Yes." And she said, "Well, here's my card. And when you are going to come to DC, we will set up that tour for you." And Amelia was just like, "Oh my gosh," she was just so very excited. So that was really something wonderful that we were able to do. And that happened in 2019, that we went to the White House and got a private tour of the West Wing and the Oval Office. And it was just kind of surreal to see that and see, the Oval Office where so much history has been made, and walk in the same areas where presidents walked, and all of these, famous politicians have walked. So it was really a wonderful experience for her. And it happened like right on her birthday. And the gal that gave us the tour had known it was her birthday. So she had told Trump about that. And they actually created a little letter for her to celebrate her birthday. And Trump and Melania both signed that letter and gave it to her along with some gifts from the Trump family. And I thought, wow, that was so wonderful and unexpected. Cool. And she was just kind of blown away with it. So, she's had a lot of wonderful opportunities
Yeah, she
and
has.
learned so much about that, and kind of a lot of what she learned, she applied to her when she spoke in front of the school board. But the whole thing was to advocate for students and to make education better for them. It's really why she started in the first place, advocating for kids. And it just kind of ballooned out from there. And I never would have thought in a million years that any of this would have happened. Looking at her as a little girl and thinking when she grows up that all of this is going to be part of her life. So it's kind of remarkable.
What would you? Have you ever seen the movie Mr. Smith Goes to Washington with Jimmy Stewart?
No, I've not. I've heard about it, but we've not
Yeah,
watched it.
well, you should watch it. And I'm reminded as you're telling me about Amelia that she has, and of course, Mr. Smith, played by Jimmy Stewart, Jefferson Smith, is well, you have to be at least 30 to be a member of the Senate. So I think he's a little over 30 in the movie. And he's just appointed, and he reminds me of Amelia, where he has this kind of pure patriotism and kind of starry-eyed look, where he's walking around Washington D.C. and saying all shucks kind of thing, and seeing all this stuff where the Pledge of Allegiance would mean a lot to him, like it means to her. And it's nice that my audience is very jaded. Ellen Corley, I love you. Of course, you're welcome on the show anytime. But in fact, I hope I watch it, Ellen. I want to play. Let's play another clip by her, because I want to give people again the flavor for how remarkable she is. So. Let's get this set up here. Okay, hold on a second. All right, get back to share screen.
Well, hopefully my computer doesn't have issues.
Yeah, I hope you can see it. Well, the important thing is that the audience sees it, and they did last time. So here you go. Here's
Okay.
more of this remarkable 14-year-old Amelia.
It's real everywhere, thriving in darkness.
Can any of you, is this even on? Is this microphone even on?
Turn it off. Just yell it.
Can any of you board members tell me what the primary responsibilities of a school board are? No one can answer? Not even the lawyer knows?
Not even Speaker Kemp.
Well, even I, a 14-year-old kid, knows the answer, so I'll tell you. According to the National School Board Association, the primary responsibilities are providing a successful education for students with the help of community input and setting the standard for achievement in the district. So, let's pick this apart further so you board members can fully grasp the concepts. Essentially, the school board advocates for students by engineering a better future for them. This must include working with parents in the process, not excluding them. As far as this board working with the community, you get a grade of F on that aspect. You won't meet with parents. You deny their FOIA requests or make them pay high fees to obtain public information. You even violate the rights of public commenters at these board meetings. Your own lawyer seems clueless about some crucial laws and arbitrarily implements rules that none of you follow. There's absolutely no partnership with parents going on here. Continuing on, regarding your responsibilities, the board sets the standard of achievement in the district and thus is accountable for student performance. According to state test scores, only 39% of students in your district are proficient in math and 49% in reading.
Wow.
Some of your schools have even lower scores. Your college readiness index is only 21 out of 100, meaning most kids aren't ready for college when they graduate from a CVS high school. That's a direct reflection of your management or lack thereof. Allowing yourselves to be controlled by left-wing National Teacher Union boss Randy Weingarten isn't working well for this district. It's impossible to align with Marxist and left-wing zealots and still prepare kids for a successful career in future. Your alignment with them may make you safe from prosecution, but it's at the expense of kids' futures. You own that. Here's a quote from Thomas Sowell. It's hard to imagine a more stupid or more dangerous way of making decisions than by putting those decisions in the hands of people who pay no price for being wrong. Parents, it's essential to vet school board candidates before you vote. As we clearly see with this board, elections have consequences. Unfortunately, it's your kids who are paying the price. Thank you.
Yeah, you can see they tried to cut her off at the end there. They just
Yeah.
don't like her. They just never know what she's going to speak about, and every time she's spoken, she's revealed some corruption and incompetence with the school board, the proficiency scores, salaries of that superintendent, which people were outraged at his almost $400,000 salary, which is the same as what the US president makes. And people were just shocked by that. And, it's been wonderful that she's brought a lot of attention to these things that people may not have known or even realized. As far as the proficiency scores go, since that speech was done, I think that was in 2023, the scores have dropped even lower at Chippewa Valley School District. I was just looking it up before I came on, and the Public School Review has ranked Chippewa Valley in the bottom 50% of all Michigan schools for 2025. And only about 27% of their high schools are proficient in math, and less than half in reading. And it's really bad. 54% of their elementary students are not proficient in reading, and 57% are not proficient in math. And as far as the middle school kids go, 53% are not proficient in reading, and 65% of their middle school are not proficient in math. So that's really a testament to I guess, what the school board is doing and the decisions that they're making and the policies that are putting forth that are really hurting the students and not focusing on the right things. And it's showing in the proficiency scores.
Well, you're absolutely right. And some of the people in the chat are saying this is not even an ideological thing. I mean, you don't have to be. Nobody can figure out what I am. I'm a populist, but I know that this teaching children about sex, especially sex that is confused, to put it politely, this kind of gender fluidity and all this not stuff, when they're not really even thinking in sexual terms yet, or they're not able to legally have sex, and yet you're throwing this all on them. And then you have teachers talking about what are your pronouns. That's not a liberal or conservative thing. That's just right. Why would any taxpayer want their money to, especially when, as your daughter has pointed out, the scores on reading and arithmetic and writing, which should be the primary things they're learning in school, and they're obviously not learning that very well, but they're learning about changing their pronouns. And I said, my Fairfax County just voted 16-0. The school were to have gender studies, whatever that is, but you know where it leads to, the fact that there's more than two genders, which obviously they're not. It's a biologically reality. So that's the kind of stuff. And as a white guy, again, I don't want my kids, if my kids were little today, I don't want them going into kindergarten and first grade and feeling this tremendous guilt about something because of their, and I don't even want them necessarily recognizing that they're white. I mean, why should they feel guilty about anything? And that's what's happening in these schools. That's critical race theory, where that you've had things where they apologize to the black kids who don't know anything yet either. That's just wrong. That has no place in school. So I and I'm not the biggest fan of school, as people have heard me talk about it. My book Bullyocracy certainly criticizes them quite a bit just on the issue of bullying, but they also don't educate students very well either. But I think what is, and again, I don't want, because Amelia is, I'm fascinated by anybody that innocent, and she has an idealism to her. And it's nice to see that because there are not many people are idealistic anymore. And yeah, she'll probably get, that's why I say, if you have her, you and her watch Mr. Smith Goes to Washington together. I think you'll see a lot of her in that because it kind of shows what happens. Frank Capra is my favorite director. He's, if you've seen It's a Wonderful Life, right?
Yes, I have seen
Okay,
that.
okay. Well, that's my favorite movie of all time. That's Frank Capra's movies. Well, all his movies are like that. They had a huge impact on me when I was young because it gives me it saves me from being black pilled like a lot of the people that listen to the show are. Where there's and I know everything's messed up and I know everything's corrupted. We have very little power to change things because we can't get enough people to work together. But watching those Frank Capra movies, it kind of grounds me, and there's always a part of me that has that hope, that maybe we can affect something. And I think you have to have that. You don't want to let go of that. But Amelia has that. But I think, what is she planning to do? Because my audience is saying that, and I'm aware of it too, that things have changed. Back in the day, we were told to go to college right after high school and so forth. Now I'm not sure what's going on because college is so expensive. I'm not sure what jobs are out there with AI coming in and all these things taking place. Does Amelia, I'm sure she'll be able to do anything she wants to do. She's very talented, but she has the idea, does she want to go into politics?
Well, she really has, people are put out the feelers for her really. If she wanted to graduate high school and go straight to Washington and work, I mean, there would be abundance of jobs for her already waiting because she's on the radar out there, especially because we have a good relationship with our congresswoman. And that I'm not sure exactly what she wants to do. At one point, she did say that she wanted to get into politics when she was younger, but she's come to realize how kind of dirty it is. It's a lot of backstabbing, a
Yep.
lot of chaos behind the scenes, a lot of nefarious things going on. And she's like, I'm not sure I really want to be involved with that. And
Yeah.
sometimes she thinks maybe she wants to be on the side of maybe the law, where she can bring some accountability to some of the corruption. So she's kind of pondered about that. At this point, she's still unsure. She does worry about if she went to college that she would be forced to take some of these classes that push the DEI and the critical race theory, and that is very much against what she believes. And
Yeah.
I think it would be interesting for her to take those classes because I think that she would really stir the pot in those classes and challenge
She
the teachers
would.
on
Well,
what they are teaching. She would not sit
sure.
silently and allow
Well,
those teachers to just push that.
absolutely. Well,
In which case,
yeah, and that's the great thing about her. But when you say law, I hope she wouldn't consider law enforcement. She's way too smart for that. I mean, in fact, she probably couldn't get into law enforcement because most police. I don't know about FBI, but most police they have an IQ limit. You can't be over a certain IQ.
oh, I didn't
That's
even
what's.
realize that.
Oh yes, because they want unquestioning people. They don't want people questioning it. She's way too smart for that. So if she talks about try to dissuade her from that. Lawyer, yeah, be great. We need good lawyers because we don't have very many of
Well,
them. But
she's thinking maybe even like a judge.
sure,
Um,
are you kidding? We certainly need good judges, but she's great. I would think that she just the most natural thing might be for because she speaks so well and she's got she might be, especially with her age, maybe she ought to create a podcast. She'd probably get more fans than I have. I think she'd be really good at it. And, I think that, I'm just reading the comments here,
well,
but,
we've kind of thought about that, but she's been so busy with school and working, and next year is going to be her senior year, and so she's really trying to focus academically right now. And so I don't know. I perhaps I could do it and maybe get her to come on once in a while. But
Yeah,
I think it
you'd be
really
good at
would
it too, sure.
more popular if she did it herself.
I think
Um,
so. Because of
but
her age.
we'll
Yeah, I
have to
think
see. It's not out of the range of possibilities of something that she wants to do. But
I think it'd be unique. I mean, you could even talk about what her experience is homeschooling because more and more people, and again, Ellen Corley, who I love, is she's I guess she's talking about the critical race theory and stuff. Is that I just think that none of that has a place in I just don't think. For instance, when I was in school. I was already becoming awake as a teenager. Kind of, I mean, kind of like Amelia. I was pretty much awake from the time I could think at all, and I was questioning things. But I could kind of realize that I already knew enough that I realized most of my teachers. I figured, but I was very liberal then. But I figured most of them were Democrats. I just could just kind of sense that, but they didn't ever say it. They didn't drop many references to it. They certainly never came right out. You should know what your teacher's politics are. That has nothing to do with education. And if you want to have debates, and we did have debates. I remember we had debates in high school on affirmative action, I think, and the Vietnam War and things like that. No, not something like that. But you couldn't tell what side the teacher was on from the way she. Now it would be impossible for a teacher to remain neutral. Let's debate Trump. Can you imagine? I mean, I'm sure the teacher is going to stay neutral, but so I think that's what I'm talking about is that, and I get the sense that's what Amelia is like. She's almost kind of stuck in a 1950s view of the Pledge of Allegiance and everything, which is wonderful because it's very pristine and pure view of things, but. And that's why I think she's unique and would be refreshing for people to hear just because she is not jaded and she hasn't been corrupted. As I say, watch Mr. Smith Goes to Washington. First of all, it's an incredible movie, and I would be shocked if she doesn't see something of herself in Jimmy Stewart's character in Jefferson Smith because he comes and I'm not saying that would happen to her, that she would get, and of course you're talking about 1939, a much less corrupt world, more innocent world. But even then, Frank Capra was showing that these politicians have their deals, and if some innocent rube comes in out of nowhere and they think he's a literal Boy Scout leader, and they bring him in and they think he's just going to do whatever they say, and he gets educated and wait a minute, this isn't right, this and so it's fantastic to watch kind of everything coming down and how the press is controlled even then. So but I think she'll see a lot of herself in that, where maybe something that if she came to Washington D.C., that might be the once she stops saying how great the monuments are and how wonderful it is and all that and how great the history is. Once she starts looking at the issues, and they might treat her that same way. But it's a great movie anyhow. But I know your family would enjoy it. But so I certainly hope I can get her back on the show too because I'm just so impressed with her. I'm looking to see if we. Everybody's talking about the system and. Okay, Chris Bucket says, "Good luck getting appointed, elected to a judge when you're not corrupt." Well, that's true. That
yes,
probably will be difficult.
exactly.
Let's see here. Democracy. Okay. Lawyering can still be a noble profession, Helen Rundell says, even in the business-oriented studies. Not as attorney, but as an advocate of justice. Yeah, and that's what I find. We need. Um, I have so many people that, I hear from people that are usually really in bad situations and they've been a victim of some kind of injustice. And there's so much from local on up, people that had their kids taken by uh, social services and child protective services, a ton of that. I've had lots of those people on my shows, and it's terrible what they do, and they can't fight them because local law enforcement, the sheriffs, and they're all involved. The judges are all on the side of CPS, and they can't fight them, and they're all looking for lawyers to represent them. And I told him, I don't know how to find him. I mean, to find a lawyer for anything is not easy. I guess maybe if you have a really high profile case where they think they can get some notoriety out of it, maybe. But I don't know where the Perry Masons are. That's what I would look at. And that's why I would hope that if Amelia went into the law, she would be a defense attorney because I think she'd be a great Perry Mason type, making sure that people weren't railroaded and that everybody has their rights. And she's talking about free speech and stuff, and that's great to hear because free speech is on the ropes, and we have certainly the Democrats. I don't know any of them that believe in free speech. So that's the problem is we have to try to save that as we can. Should we play how long is your clip? Should we play your clip now?
It's probably about 3 minutes because that's all we get to speak at these school board meetings. It's just 3 minutes and then they'll cut you off.
Okay. Let's play your thing too.
But this is Amelia took this, so it's a little bit choppy and it doesn't really show me. It really shows who I'm speaking about.
Okay.
Miss Aquino, who is she was the one I spoke about before, who was on the school board for 27 years and resigned and then was nefariously reinstalled on the school board. And
there's too many Miss Aquinos across the country.
A bad character, really, not really done much good in the district, kind of a figurehead, really, and just goes along with whatever is really the consensus on the school board, which tends to be far left. But it really kind of if you watch her facial expressions, you can really see the disdain. At one point, she does agree with something I'm saying, but then I point out the hypocrisy of what she said, and she didn't like that at all. So just her facial expressions are very disrespectful, and that's kind of what we have dealt with this school board, a lot of disrespect from them. And contention with them. They really don't like us.
Exactly. Well, I'm sure they don't. Okay, let's go with this here. Let's see.
Americans living in zip codes starting with 20.
I'd like to address some things said at the last meeting. First off, Denise, you claimed only people living in this district are stakeholders and took offense to non-stakeholders speaking at these meetings. By your own definition, then, Mr. Roberts should not be this district superintendent because he doesn't live in the district and therefore is not a stakeholder. He lives in an affluent area of Rochester. So why was he appointed as this district superintendent?
Good one.
Yeah.
By definition, anyone with an interest in the success of a school system, including the general public, is a stakeholder, as we're all affected as a country by the education students receive. Education determines a child's future, whether they end up in prison, can't pay their student loans, can't manage their money, or become politicians who decide laws. We're all affected by that. Our taxes are used collectively to defend and house criminals in prisons or pay welfare benefits when kids take wrong paths in their lives due to an inadequate or indoctrinating education. So it's our duty as American citizens, regardless of where we live, to ensure all kids get a proper education so they can be prosperous, productive members of society. The stakeholders debate is now closed, Denise. Next, at the last meeting, Superintendent Roberts said, quote, "We've said numerous times that other people don't have the right to direct the education of other people's children," unquote. And Denise, you claim that some people here were trying to, quote, "impose their feelings on other people's children, which is not their right," unquote. That's extremely hypocritical considering this board has imposed their own feelings on students in this district. You feel the sexually graphic books in your school libraries are educational and should not be removed. You feel it's perfectly acceptable to teach young kids they can choose their gender. You feel it's great to have LGBT flags in your schools. You feel your curriculum should teach aspects of critical race theory, history revision, DEI, and other divisive opinions. Mr. Roberts, neither you nor this board have the right to push your ideologies into classrooms. Your job is ensuring a fact-based education where kids are taught how to think, not what to think.
Right.
A quote from Nora Denzel states, "Having a bad boss isn't your fault. Staying with one is," unquote. it's time to fire the bosses on the board and elect a board that will make this district great again.
Right. So,
Right. Now, who was that talk? I noticed in the other video too. There's like somebody talking I could hear. Was that Amelia?
No, sometimes people that are attending the meetings will make comment about something that the speakers are saying. I think those were probably people that are on our side that were agreeing with what I was saying. So sometimes that their voices are picked up on the microphone.
Okay, because when I listen to you, I hear Amelia's cadence. I think she came by naturally. You know, it's kind of like when I hear it's very similar kind of phraseology and cadence when you're talking and just kind of really confronting them. And I thought that was very telling the way though she just looked like she was amused as she was sitting there, you know, just smiling and putting her face with her hands and everything, and kind of
Yeah.
shaking her. It's just certainly it was very revealing, and I think that I'm looking
Yeah,
here
we
at some of
just
the.
like to one of the points of contention in that school district has been those sexually graphic books in their school libraries.
Right.
And a lot of people on the left look at it as, oh, you're trying to ban books. That's
Right.
awful. How can that girl go in and talk about the Constitution, but then in the next breath say that she wants to ban books? And
Right.
my response is never once have we ever advocated for banning books. Banning books or anything else means that the book is not available for sale or circulation anywhere. We are just asking for state and federal laws to be followed because a lot of the books in these libraries are adult only books, and a lot of
Right.
the sex scenes are very, very graphic that are depicted in the books. A lot of pedophilia and rape and incest. And it's not just that we are against trans or LGBT or anything. We are, even heterosexual sex. Kids should not be exposed to any of
No.
that. And those books are in there. So those books have no place in school libraries. Now, if parents want their kids to read those books, that's their prerogative. I don't agree with it, but it's their
Right.
child. And if they want their kids to read those books, go and purchase it or go to the public library. Those books are all available there. But school, it should be a place for that-based learning, and those books should not be encouraged. And some schools put those books right out in front on display, and it's just quite inappropriate. And
Yeah. Absolutely. No,
they
you're right.
the school board has said, oh, there's a process that we're reviewing the books, but it's a very slow process. And some of the bad books that should not be in there, they reviewed them and kept them in their libraries. So,
Yeah.
that's that's not good either. I mean, one of the books that they reviewed and kept in is called Sold by Patricia McCormick. And that book deals with rape of a minor and very graphic sex acts, explicit violence, in child sex trafficking. That's
Yeah.
all in that book. And kids don't need to be reading about that. Another book
No.
that was reviewed and kept in this particular district and is a point of contention in many districts is a book called All Boys Aren't Blue by George Johnson. That book is very anti-white and anti-police, and it has graphic depictions of sodomy of a minor and sex acts and descriptions of sex between underage boys and men. And again, that's something that should not be in the public schools, because if you took some of the depictions of what's in those books, and let's say a stranger texted that or emailed that to a minor, and that would be illegal.
Right.
Some of these books are very explicit about how they describe the sex acts,
Right.
and we kind of watch some of these. Amelia likes watching this. Chris Hansen, I don't
To
uh,
Catch a
know.
Predator. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, he has a show that comes on, and they will sometimes read some of the texts that these men will send to these supposedly underage people, but they're
Yeah.
really decoys.
Yes.
And
Yes.
some of that, what is said, is not even as graphic as what's depicted in these books in the schools.
Right.
And these men are being arrested for what they're texting to these supposed underage people. So why is it okay that these books are kept in the schools, but you will be arrested if it's texted or shown to a minor outside of the school? It just makes absolutely no sense. And I a lot of people just can't wrap their head around why the left is so adamant. They claim that they're educational and that LGBT kids want to see their own I guess people or kids like them depicted in these books. But there are other books that depict LGBT characters that don't have to be so graphic with the sexual descriptions.
Exactly.
And
Of
they're,
course.
they're pushing it for younger and younger kids. They have
Yes.
word books for babies about
Yes.
anti-racism, and two being raised by two dads or two moms. There's one book that I've seen that was just being
Heather has two
circulated.
moms.
It was about how um, a pregnant dad gave birth, and I'm like, you're teaching kids that
Yeah.
a
It's just.
man can give birth. I mean, that doesn't even follow the science, which
Yeah.
is something that they want to have everyone do. Follow the science.
Well,
Well,
yeah, yeah, it's crazy, and you go back to say the 1950s or whatever, and then you had it still in the 60s, even in the 70s, you had you always had indoctrination in schools. The schools are indoctrinating, and they've always been about trying to create citizens of the state, and but at least the propaganda that was directed to them back then was to respect law and order, to nothing about sex. I mean, you had sex education where you separated the boys and the girls. I think it was eighth grade we learned it maybe, and that kind of stuff.
mhm.
And some parents objected to that, which is okay. I mean, whatever, but you could argue maybe they don't have a role in even doing that, but it never leaked over into the regular classroom. And there was certainly nothing, believe me, as a young boy, if they had had anything about sex in the school library, I would have been interested. Everybody, we've all been interested, but not anything with
Exactly.
the sex they're talking about, because again, this trans stuff was completely unknown. So when they talk about the LGBTQ plus whatever, how many silent P, whatever that these things are, this is a phenomenon that's been created. Because if they had always existed, you could say, well, they didn't exist then. And Ellen Orley was talking about gays being bullied in school, and that's true. And I wrote a book about that, Ellen. And but it wasn't just gays, but yeah, a lot of them were like the drama students, or maybe people that are perceived to be gay. And obviously, I'm on the fought the schools on that and talked about how evil they were in terms of enabling bullying. But what you have now is this is way it's an indoctrination, but and back then when you had the conservative kind of mainstream indoctrination, they learned things. You still got taught math and yes, in the history, like somebody was talking about 9/11 and JFK, and I've obviously talked about that a lot. Yes, I don't like the fact that they teach you just the conventional view of history, and there's a couple of lines, Oswald killed JFK, which is obviously false, but they really can't go into too deep into these things. And but what they're doing now is this, they're not learning anything, and there's this what you're talking about, and what you mentioned those books, and there's another one, Gender Queer, that's probably the most famous of them all. But
Mhm.
all the books I've seen, and again, I'm not suggesting, and people said I'm not suggesting that they promote books about heterosexuality. But none of the things I've seen promote heterosexuality. It's all wrapped up in the LGBTQ stuff, and it's usually men having sex with little boys or men having sex with boys that think they're girls, and that kind of stuff. And that's why I've said the cross the transgender story hour, and and I'll ask you this: it's like, is it how many mothers do you think would approve of if a school board said, we're going to have stripper story hour, and we're going to have Bambi and Tiffany, from the local, and these are biological females, and they're going to come in with the pole and do their thing, and then read to the little kids. I guarantee you they would be outraged,
Well,
but they're
it's
not
funny.
outraged.
It's funny you bring that up because our Attorney General Dana Nessel is on video saying that she loves drag queens and drag queens are fun, and she advocates for a drag queen in every school for Drag Queen Story Hour. So if it was up to them,
Yeah,
they would have that, and that just does not have a place in school, for especially for little kids. No offense to drag queens, I don't agree with it, but that's adult entertainment, and if they want to do that, that's their prerogative. Let them entertain adults. But
of course.
dressing provocatively and twerking around and
Yeah.
and having a sexual vibe in front of preschoolers or
Exactly.
young children, that's just so inappropriate, and there's
Of
nothing
course it is.
educational about that at
No,
all. You can teach kids empathy and acceptance without bringing sex into
absolutely.
the story, into the narrative.
Absolutely. And you're absolutely right. And that's what I say. If there's a difference between, and there's a difference to them. There's a difference between them if you tried to do something like, let's have the girls down at the local strip club. Girls, real, not pretend girls. They come on, that doesn't work because that's not part of what they're trying to promote. Not that, again, it's something they shouldn't be promoting, but they wouldn't promote it because it doesn't work. It's the same thing when you the entire thing is to try to, and again, this is grooming. Why are, as people have said, why don't they have transgender story hour at nursing homes? Why don't they have, it's in places like that? Why do they have to involve kids? And
I
again,
don't think
it's obvious.
I don't think that generation would really be accepting of that. I
No,
mean,
they wouldn't, but I
did
mean,
not grow up with that at all as a norm or acceptance. I mean, if you look at a lot of these older programmings, the husband and wife slept in separate beds. And
yes, they sure did. Yeah,
it wasn't until around maybe about Brady Bunch or something like that where
yeah,
you
yeah, yeah,
actually saw a married couple in the same bed. And now you've got commercials with men kissing, women kissing,
yeah, yeah,
very sexualized
yeah.
content that young kids are being fed and seeing. And you know childhood is such a short period of time in a
Yes,
person's life.
yes,
Why do you have to um, sexualize young children? Why do you have to bring adult topics to young children? Let them be children. Let them be innocent.
yes.
They
Uh-oh,
still can higher
yeah,
lives ahead of them, to learn about all of this different stuff or to experience sex, be sexual, whatever. But when they're children, stop focusing on that. Focus on foundational learning, things that will actually help them in life. One of the
exactly.
things that a lot of these public schools should be teaching that they're not teaching is finance, basic
Yes,
basic
exactly.
finance. I mean, the other day I went to a Myers store and I had a rain check for an item. The item was supposed to be $1 and it rang up on the cash uh, in the cash register as $2.69. And I had gotten 10 of them. Well, the cashier could not figure out what I should have paid or what she should subtract, and what I should actually have paid for those items. And I'm like, I looked at her and I said, this is why math is so important in school. And she just kind of looked at me like I was being ridiculous. Like she was just disgusted with what I said.
Yeah.
And I'm like, unless the computer is telling them how much change to give back,
Right.
or what the sale price is, they are not able to figure it out. They don't know how to open a bank account. They don't know how to compound interest. They don't know how to
Yeah.
manage money,
Write a
budget,
check note. Yeah.
or
Yeah.
anything. And those are things that are crucial. And
Yes.
it's so reflective because kids they can't adult really, and that's why they have to move back in with their parents. A lot of times they just can't afford it. They're out there buying $10 lattes or the most fashionable clothes and things like that, rather than saving their money, or budgeting their money and learning how to live within their means. And that's something that should be taught. Put that in schools instead of teaching them
Yeah.
about that they
Well,
can change their gender.
well, it depends on, what does the society want? If you want, I mean, again, the idea is to get obedient citizens. Okay, that's fine. But we stopped teaching civics before I was in school even. And civics was very important. And that they need to start that again. I was going to mention finance. They need personal finance because nobody knows how. I mean, you don't have much of a reason to write a check these days, but most young people can't because they've never done it. They don't understand. A lot of them don't even understand, how their bank account works. I mean, when it's online, it's a lot easier. But they need to understand these things. You're right, life skills, or something like that they could call it. I mean, they don't teach women home ec anymore because I'm sure that's probably incredibly misogynist or sexist or something. So that, I guess boys, they don't do shop anymore or anything like that. So but back when they had those things, but I didn't like shop really, but it's ostensibly taught you something, maybe worthwhile. But gender studies and all that is because there's no evidence that a little kid, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 years old, that's what they're looking when they go to school. They need to find out what they are, and they need to find out at school what they are, and they need to have a helpful teacher who's going to recognize in them. Oh, I think maybe you had some gender fluidity going on there. And that's what we see with these teachers, and that's not their job. Just like
Right.
they might as well say, I think, we have a little future Republican voter here. Maybe you shouldn't be. They don't come, but that's wrong. We shouldn't know any of that stuff. They should be there teaching them. And the fact that's why Amelia is so great when she points out the low literacy rate and math rate. And they just sit there like they're, or you're not. I mean, if you had a job and you were that big of a miserable failure at it, which clearly they are. I mean, if they're because I mean,
Right.
it's not them to teach it, but they should be setting the tone for the curriculum and saying. And I think I'm sure you saw that too. I don't know if Amelia watched these or not, but I mean, they're very entertaining. But when you watch those TikTok videos, that's where the craziest people, and I love TikTok in many ways, but the craziest people go to TikTok, and you have these green-haired teachers with the LGBT flag in the background and the
Yeah.
nose rings, and they're insane, and they're teaching your children. I don't know. Have you seen any of those? I'm
Right.
sure you have.
I never had a teacher that looked like that. And most certainly, if there was a teacher that was gay, they kept their private life private. They didn't go into the classroom and say, "Hey, kids, I have a husband or I have a wife, and my pronouns are z, there." Um,
Mhm. Mhm.
they it just wasn't a focus. They were there to do a job to teach children and not to advocate for a certain sexual lifestyle. And
Yeah, I couldn't imagine even mentioning that when I was, and again,
right.
when we were in high school, boys especially were obsessed with sex. That's why this idea that you can, they're opening up girls' locker rooms to boys, and you don't even have to, you can keep everything. I mean, I know back in high school, I think probably 75% of us boys would have taken that deal. Oh, good, we can go watch the girls dress out, and we'll just say we're girls. but we don't actually have to become girls. I mean, what
Right.
kind of a nonsense is that? But and I
Yeah.
think that's what led to that rape of the guy and daughter in Loudoun County.
Yeah, it could have been. I really don't know, but the hypocrisy is that the Democrat Party claims to be the protector of women. We're all for women's rights. However, you're violating 100% of biological women's rights by allowing men that identify as women into women's spaces. So how is that protective of women? And how is that protective of girls? We teach stranger danger, and that you shouldn't be, you should be modest, or different values like that. But then you're going to have fully intact men and boys in women's spaces. And who what parent in their right mind wants to have their young little girl in the locker room with them, at the swimming pool, or a sports game or something like that, and all of a sudden you have a man coming in there and undressing in front of your little girl? It just
It's amazing.
makes no sense to me
Yeah.
at all.
No, it's a very emotional issue, and I can't imagine when my daughter was little. I can't consider. I would be hopping mad. I mean, I would be on a viral video. I don't understand these parents, and I don't understand again, as you mentioned, the women's issue. How is this? And again, this, what toxic feminism has done is they've taught so much hatred of men, especially white men, but
Right.
now they're in love with men that pretend they're women. They
Yeah,
love them,
feminized
but they
men.
just so all you have to do is get the women to like you. Say, "I'm a woman." Okay, sure, and we'll accept you with open arms. I don't understand that. It's crazy, and uh, this it has to be called out. And it's not. I don't think that's a conservative. Because I'm not a conservative at all. Anybody that knows me, I'm radical on most things, but this is just absurd. And the schools weren't good when I was there. I mean, a couple of people in the chat room were talking about it. I mean, I can think of almost nothing I learned in school that was. I'm self-educated completely. I learned it was nothing. I fell asleep a lot in school because it was so boring, and no one recognized. None of my English teachers recognized that I was a writer. I mean, I would write a paper in like an hour before class and get an A on it. Nobody recognized that. So they didn't and they should be able to see that and encourage somebody to do it because it would have helped. I mean, luckily I had the self confidence to keep doing it, but that's the kind of stuff they're supposed to recognize. They didn't, and I look back and there's so few things I remember about school that stayed with me. But so I think, and that's why it's there wasn't such thing as homeschoolers, and people need to realize the homeschool movement. The left and the establishment opposed that to such a degree, and I wrote about this in my book Hidden History. One of the early homeschooling advocates was assassinated. I don't know who, somebody in the government killed him. He was shot in the back when he went outside to get his mail. This is back in the 1980s. I think it was 80s. When homeschooling, because there was violent opposition to homeschooling at first. And now it's kind of become so mainstreamed and they're losing people all the time. The only reason I think, and you may agree with me on this, the only reason I think that you don't see 80% of kids being homeschooled is because financially it's just hard for most people because a lot of times both parents have to work and somebody has to be there to do it. You guys, I guess, were able to do that, or you said you send her so they have a facility for it now. She's not educated actually at home.
Well, they have like a campus that is run by people that have homeschooled, and they have various people in there to teach. They're not all like accredited teachers, but they're very extremely knowledgeable in their field. Like one of the teachers there is a Vietnam veteran, and he's written many books and very knowledgeable about history. And so he teaches most of their history classes. The English teacher is excellent that they have there. They're very top notch in their knowledge. And the kid they're not teaching all of this other nonsense. It's strictly fact based. And I think if parents have the option for something like that, that's great. But like you said, a lot of times both parents work. So it's just not feasible, or they can't financially afford a private school. But that's why it's so important that the public schools change so that every child can get the education that they need in order to become successful adults.
Right. And it's just ideology should be, and again, I'm not suggesting, and again, Ellen, I am not a conservative. I'm surprised if you read my stuff, you think I'm a conservative. I end up sticking, agreeing with a lot of far right wing views because the left, where I came from, is absolutely insane at this point, for the most part. The woke ideology is, I mean, it's insane. I'm not going to be part of it, that kind of insanity. But there should be no ideology in schools. I'm not suggesting, I've been against for a long time. I hate the fact that the military, I remember I was so mad when my son was in high school and they brought military recruiters and they're trying to get these guys. And I said, he wasn't tempted, but I said, that's wrong because they get these kids and they're gung ho and they're trying to send them off to no win wars and nonsense to get killed for no reason at all. I don't want that kind of ideology. I don't want them having an ideology worshiping police or worshiping law enforcement. They shouldn't overtly be just bashing them and saying don't respect them at all. But I certainly don't want them on there talking about how great Israel is. We all have to be Zionists or something. There should be no ideology there at all. They should be, math is not, despite what the left says about math being racist and basic grammar being racist, which they've said, these are the things you need to learn so that like the person at the store that couldn't figure out basic math in terms of what would cost you. That's what we're talking about here, and certainly nothing to do with sex because they have all this LBGT stuff going on at the same. As far as I know, they haven't changed statutory rape laws, so there's still some 18 and 19-year-old boys that are serving long prison sentences for having sex with their 16-year-old girlfriends, which is a whole lot more natural than what they're talking about. And so again, they're sending mixed signals. That is wrong. When I'm not saying I support it, but I mean it's pretty natural, and it's much more natural thing than what they're. But this other stuff of changing your pronouns and showing, who knows how many? I don't know. How much you can change someone, but especially if you're a little boy, and this is, and girls, you're seeing more girls. It used to be most of these transitions were almost all boy to girl. Now you're seeing a lot more girl to boy, but who knows how many of these kids they may be coming from a family environment where they're not getting good support. Maybe there's a single parent or something, and they don't have any strong adult in the home to give them any guidance, and they're going there and they're being twisted by suddenly seeing it at age 8. Now I don't know how young they are when they're seeing these books in the library, but even if they're 10, 11, 12, they're just entering puberty and they're seeing this. If I was a boy today and I'm seeing that, I might look that, especially if it's the only thing that might get my prurient interest up, in the library that has something to do with sex, and I'm seeing that's going to mess my mind up to see I'm a little boy and they're showing a little boy having sex with a man. I mean, that's wrong. It's just I don't know. Call me a prude, but
Well, I mean, we cannot agree with the lifestyle, but how many of us heterosexual people go out and are always talking about heterosexual sex? We don't have a flag to celebrate it. I mean, it's just, it doesn't need to be brought attention to. That's the thing. I don't care if it's heterosexual sex, if it's gay sex or whatever. That's your private life. Keep it private. You don't have to broadcast it to the entire world about it. And just because it's like they want like special privileges. They want special recognition because they are part of the LGBT community. And I'm like, no, you've gotten used to this special treatment. So equal treatment feels like discrimination to you. And that should not be the case.
No, that's what, Norm Macdonald had a great line where he was talking about gay pride, and a lot of religious people think that pride is a sin. So why is this, why are you proud about anything necessarily, but to be proud of your sexuality, and especially when it's different and it's something that offends a lot of people, right or wrong. But Norm Macdonald said, he saw this dad, holding up a sign, "I'm proud of my gay son." He goes, "Why are you proud? It's not an achievement." And that's what it is. They act as if they've achieved something. And it's like,
Yeah.
so I'm not proud of being heterosexual. I mean, it's like, it's not an achievement. It's lunacy. And it has, again, well, I don't necessarily I understand you shouldn't be ashamed of being gay. And, I can remember when Marines would go around picking gays to beat up for no reason because maybe they were repressing their own homosexual urges. I don't know why. I think there's something there because I don't know why you would want to do that so badly. But you've gone from one extreme to the other now, where I don't have to know. Now you guess you don't have to guess because they're overtly, with flamboyancy and hairdos and everything. You can tell what they are, and it's not like there's any secret. I don't need to know that. Again, when I was in high school, nobody. I guess there were some gay kids, but I don't remember thinking, well, that guy's gay or anything. It never, because we didn't discuss it. I don't know about you. I'm sure you're younger than me, but what if that was the experience you
No,
had in high school?
I I didn't know any, and certainly no transgender people.
No,
But you've
no.
got to wonder why there's such a huge uptick in it.
Yeah.
Is
Yes.
it because it's being encouraged?
Yes.
Like, I see a lot of, videos where these parents are like, "Oh, my son knew that he was a girl, or my daughter knew that she was a boy when he or she was 2 years old or 5 or 6 or something." And I'm
Yeah.
like, at that age, children are looking for attention from their parents. They
Of
want
course.
affirmation from their parents. So
Yeah.
if they're going to go along with what the parents are saying, and and if the parents are encouraging this, or they're saying, "Oh, little Johnny, you look so good dressed up as little Jenny, and oh, that's such a wonderful dress that you're wearing," and
Yeah.
they make a big deal about it, and the kid's going to be like, "Wow, mom gives me a lot of attention when I dress in a dress." And some people are just, I guess maybe consciously or unconsciously pushing this onto their children.
They
And
are. They are. Yeah.
the
And I.
children think, they question, you know what they are, and then they go to school, and it's talked about in school, and the seed is kind of planted, like, well,
Yeah.
my sisters all wear dresses, so I I play with them, and I wear a dress sometimes when we play, so does that mean I'm a girl? And
Well, yeah. And
this
with
is
the
all
with
being encouraged, and they're just confusing
and with
kids.
the
That's what I
narcissistic
mean.
society we have now, everybody's a narcissist, especially young people. And so you have things like that guy Dylan Mulvaney, who I can see that why there would be more Dylan Mulvaneys if, again, everybody's looking to be famous, everybody's looking to be a star, and
Mhm.
YouTube presents that, and that's what Dylan Mulvaney. I mean, here's a guy. How many other people are going to see? Look what happened to him. He decided to document his transition on YouTube, and oh my God, and putting makeup on and acting as feminine as he could gradually, and he becomes a spokesman for Budweiser. He's on The View. He's on these television shows. I don't know how much money he's made, but he's made a lot more probably than if he'd gone into the working world. You're going to see lots more like that, and it's because it is being encouraged. They're looking for that, and I'm not, again, I have a problem with that. I don't think, transvestites have been around forever. That's a fantasy. Okay, that's fine. It's harmless. I don't care. But when you get to the point where you have the medical profession participating, first do no harm, and they're participating in sexual mutilation and
Right.
again, these are minors that can't legally have sex, but you're allowing them to cut their breasts and penises off. And that's insidious. And I
Well,
don't know how many. Yeah, I
At
mean,
the
just
least, they're giving them puberty blockers. And,
yes,
these are kids that
yes.
have never experienced anything, don't know about sex. And those puberty blockers are most likely going to make the child sterile. And at that young of age, they don't really realize the
No,
repercussions. And now we're
no,
seeing a lot of people coming out
yeah,
that are detransitioning, that
yeah,
are
yep,
very upset. And they're saying, well, none of this was really explained to me. I was upset and I was depressed and everything. And, instead of getting the kid like some serious counseling, they're encouraging that, well, maybe you're just not comfortable in your body, and maybe you're the opposite sex or something.
just
And it
yeah, it's
I
terrible. I
just
can't
can't
imagine.
wrap my head around it. I
Well,
I
that's
just
what.
can't.
Well, and you, yeah, you must feel so lucky that because you have a child that's at a real vulnerable age, and if she was in public school, she would be subject to all this pressure. She seems like she's obviously way too strong to fall for that, but she's got a unique personality in terms of a unique mindset, the way she looks at things. But the average 14-year-old, I don't know. If my kids were little today, I would have to find a way to homeschool them. I'd be terrified to send them off to public school just because I don't know what kind of teacher they're getting. And most of them look like they're ready to look for, changing pronouns at the drop of a hat. And and you have in the schools now, I don't know how many, but they have something they call furries. Or these kids that think they're animals or they think they're cats, and they have
Right.
litter boxes in some schools. It's like how can anybody and tampons in men's bathrooms? That's what they called Tim Walz tampon Tim because he supported that.
Mhm.
This is beyond mental illness. I mean, this is. Could you go back 50 years and show what was happening to all American leaders, no matter how corrupt they were or how bad they were? They would have been up. What? But this is a reality today. So young parents dealing with these with these kids that are, if they have to financially send them to these schools, everybody has a right to demand that. No, at least 'cause I know how much I loved horses when I was a kid. I loved pony. I loved hippos, and so of course, if somebody tells, well, you can be a hippo, you can be a horse. Of course, as a 5 or 6 year old, I'm going to say, cool, I'm a hippo, and the adults are enabling it. Because I mean, they're enabling them being cats. They literally are. I've seen the outfits they wear, and this is mental illness. And again, it just I don't know how anybody can support it.
Each to his own, I guess. That we're never going to come to agreement 100% on everything, the entire country. um, but morals and values are so important. And I think as a society we've drifted away from a lot of that and are focusing on a lot of the wrong things. And society is really reflecting that in these college campuses where you've got so all these violent protesting. And it's just, we're going the wrong way. And they say the definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over again
Right,
and trying to
right.
get a different result. Well, for 50 years the Department of Education has been in existence, and the proficiency scores have just dropped since then. And we're doing the same things now over and over again, expecting a different result. And we're we're just creating more and more havoc and ruining a lot more lives and just really degrading as a society. And we really need to turn back to just making education and not indoctrination.
Absolutely, that's all. That's all we ask for. Again, I wouldn't if they if they had elementary school and they were teaching them my radical philosophy and trying to see I would expect parents to object to that. I you don't want that. I mean, there should there are finite facts that like math. Math should not be politicized. It can't be.
Right.
Same thing with basic grammar can't be politicized. That they should be learning that first. And as you know, later on, I've always felt that education, when it gets to a certain level, you should be able to have almost all selectives where you can, if you want to, we used to have DE, was it before, no, it was D, what was it? Not DEI, obviously. It was something, I didn't do it, but you could like go to work, like learn mechanics for the car and all. I forget what they called it, but it was that some kind of education even back then. So somebody that wants to do that, you want to learn to be a car mechanic, then have a course for them to teach that because they had it back then. They could obviously do it now. You want to be, whatever. If you want to go into a particular thing, secretaries really aren't demanding type, but they had typing back then, and of course they had home ec for the. I'm sure there aren't too many little girls that want to grow up to be homemakers at this point, probably in these crazy schools. But that's what you would have. You would have so that, and people like me back then that wanted to be writers, then they would have had like specialized writing courses and try to encourage and bring that out of you. If you were interested in history, whatever that instead of making everybody take advanced math. I mean, nobody wants to take calculus. The average person doesn't want to take that kind of stuff. But it's always been wrong. It's just when they throw. I think I've been opposed to it for a long time, but this insanity being injected into it is just, I think, crazy. But we have a few minutes left, but I want to make sure you get anything else you want to talk about that we didn't forget, that I want to give you a chance to talk about it.
Well, I think we covered a lot of important topics
Yeah.
as far as the education. I think at this point, we're just going to have to wait and see what happens with the Trump administration and what's going to happen with the Department of Education, because it seems like they are they are planning on kind of eliminating the Department of Education, but moving a
Yeah.
lot of what was in it into different areas.
Yeah.
The Treasury Department, Health and Human Services, things like that, where we don't have to spend so much money on the Department of Education. That money can be used for other things. So we really kind of have to see where this administration is going to take things. They've made a lot of good policies so far as trying to remove the DEI teaching from the schools. It's going to be up to the schools to decide if they're going to continue to push that or not. Hopefully they'll comply so that they can continue to get the federal funding, because that would be in the best interest of the students. You don't want to
You
deprive
do.
the kids of the federal funds just because you want to push your ideologies. That's just wrong. So
That's it.
we kind of have to wait and see what's going. In the meantime, parents need to go to school board meetings, figure out what's going on in your district, figure out where your tax money is being spent on the education, because we're spending a lot of money on education and the scores are dropping, and that should not be the case. So really get involved in the schools, and find out what these policies are. Get to know who your school board is. Maybe run for school board yourself and
Mhm.
try to make a difference, because all politics is local and you don't get more local than a school board. So it's
Right.
really an extremely important thing to know what's going on in education. And that way you can help your children navigate better and get a better education. And if it just doesn't work for you and it doesn't change, then try to figure out a way to do homeschooling. There's homeschool pods. There's a campus like what we go to. Get a group of parents together that can homeschool, and it doesn't have to be during the day. I mean, a lot of times Amelia's, doing homework and stuff at night, and she's working during the day. And who's to say that you only have to do schooling from 8:30 in the morning till
Right.
3 o'clock in the afternoon? And
Right.
everything can be a learning experience. Just going to a store can be a learning
Yep.
experience.
Absolutely.
So yeah, just
No,
it.
you're exactly right, and I think that there's room here. We can be flexible, and even I've always thought the school starts way too early for most people. I was always dead to the world when I went in because I could I've always been a night person. I couldn't stay awake, and especially for high school kids, they get older because they tend to want to stay up later. And
Mhm.
so this is they need flexibility there. You're right. They could learn at different times. They could have staggered schedules. There's so many things they could do. instead of making everybody have uniform, go to 9 to 5, basically. It's a job, is effectively what it is. But is there, I think we covered just about anything. And again, I just give my best to Amelia and tell her what a big fan I am, because I really am. And I'm going to send you that book. You give me your address, and make sure Vince sends you his book too. So what's the website again? For people can see all Amelia's videos on your YouTube channel. What's the address for that?
Yeah. Well, they can just go to YouTube and search Leanne Marie, and my name is on the screen there, Leanne, and then Marie, Marie. Or they can also look up under Little Patriots Mom. So you go there on YouTube, and all the videos are there, or most of her school board speech videos are there. And even if you go on YouTube and search for like school board girl or school board girl 14, because she was 14 when she gave a lot of these speeches, and you do a search like that, and a lot of her videos will come up as well as a lot of the YouTubers or social media influencer videos that were done about her. And some of those are like really good, where they give their perspective on what she said. And it's really interesting to watch those, because you see her speech and then you see them critiquing it. And so far, I haven't found anyone that's critiqued her speeches badly. They're all like in full support of her and saying, "Hey, this girl is amazing."
She's remarkable, especially when taking into consideration she's 14 years old. So just fantastic.
She's
Go
15
watch
now.
her video. Oh, she's 15. Okay, but she
Yeah.
did a lot of it when she was 14. She was already all the way up to 15. But yeah, it's remarkable work, and I have to have her back on again sometimes. So I want to keep updated, especially if she makes some more videos. But give her my best, and thank you so much, Leanne, for coming on the show. It was great talking with you as always. Keep up the good work
Well,
yourself.
thank you for having me.
You should run for school board or something yourself, because I see a political future for you too, maybe.
Yeah,
Do
people
something.
are, have asked me to do that, and I've thought about it. Um, but do I really want to get embroiled in all of this right now? I think I want to wait and see what goes on with the Trump administration, and
Yeah.
hopefully then
Yeah.
that will be enough to really get these public schools back in order, and I won't have to continue to advocate for what I'm doing now, and Amelia
Well,
won't have to do it
well,
anymore.
I hope that
Schools will
happens.
actually be working for the kids, and
That would be wonderful. Yeah, because I mean, these videos are great, but there shouldn't be a need for them. So
right,
let's hope they
exactly.
all do what they're supposed to do, which is educate kids, not indoctrinate them. So thanks so much, Leanne. We'll be talking soon, I'm sure. Take care. Thanks everybody for
Okay,
listening to I Protest. We'll
thank
talk to you
you.
next week, same time. Take care. Thank you.